are only as strong as your weakest link as a team player. So with that being said, can you discuss some of the common causes of stress for the modern parents? It's not like our mother's generation.
You're so right. And I think, like you said, there's so much wisdom, and especially when kids are young, if your kids are still young, letting them be involved as much as possible because they naturally want to be involved and to help out and to learn at that age. And so teaching in that space is, I think, really valuable. I feel like one rule that's helped me a lot for myself is that I won't do anything for my kids that they're capable of doing themselves, because that's actually disrespecting their capability and their ability to do it themselves, which also over time takes a lot of things off my plate when they're capable, like you talked about, of doing their own laundry or preparing their own breakfast or lunch. Those are now hours in my day where I get to just be present with them or work on stuff if they're doing other things. So I think that's such a valuable piece of advice that you just gave. And you're so right. We're living in a very fascinating time and navigating things that we can't really get great advice from necessarily from our parents or grandparents, because these are new things. I hear it talked about that our generation is the last one that will remember what life was like before social media, before smartphones, before the internet being so ubiquitous that it's in literally all aspects of our lives, from now our refrigerators to our plugs to our light bulbs, everything's so connected. And I think, this has been talked about some, but I think it's worth looking at more, is that there's kind of a fracture happening within that, in that we're more connected technologically, but we're statistically much less connected, like in actual proximity with people, and like strength of community has gone down. I think this matters a lot because we have seen the statistics probably that loneliness is actually more dangerous than smoking. And the counterpoint to that is what I've always noticed with the blue zone studies is that, we could debate all day the intricacies of, did they eat more fish or not? Did they drink red wine? Is that why they're so healthy? But the commonality they all have is that, yes, maybe they walked more, maybe they ate slower, maybe they drank a little bit of wine, but they did those things with people that they loved. And they had very, very strong communities. And even when we see minor pockets of blue zones, that is the commonality that persists, is that really strong community. So I think that starts at home, but also doesn't end at home. Especially as women, I think that isolation after the last few years has really taken a toll on women. And there is something to friendships with other women that isn't fulfilled entirely even by the most amazing spouse in the world, or even by our children, and it shouldn't be. But I feel like being so technologically connected has actually made it harder for us to be in community in real life. And so I think if there's one takeaway there, is to any degree that even if we have to build that community, to prioritize that in our life. I also think because of the advent of the technology we're seeing today, it's so easy to literally never have to go outside, never interact with nature. And we hear doctors and health experts now talking about what they call nature deficit disorder, where we're meant to live in alignment with the natural rhythms of light and seasons and temperature. And we have the ability to completely disconnect from that, but that's not what our biology was designed for. And so I think before we even get into the realm of talking about all the amazing things that we do have access to because of connectedness and technology, with supplements and protocols and biohacking and so many cutting edge things, I think we first have to get back in touch with nature and with relationships with people. And then all of those other things will be more effective because we have that sort of blue zone factor of community. And that said, I also know how hard that is when you're a busy mom and you're just trying to juggle all the things you have to do in general. You have to almost make an effort to build that community in. But I think whether it's like dinners with other families, mom's nights out, just having friends that you can talk to regularly, that actually makes a tremendous difference. And we actually see data on that, which is really, really fascinating. I also think we're still learning to navigate women now being so much, as much as men, in the working world, but then still handling the majority of household tasks as well. And I don't know that there's a clear, perfect answer to that, but I think it's a balancing act that we each have to figure out as we go, to make sure that we don't get overwhelmed and burned out, which are the two most common words that mental health experts hear from moms, is that they're overwhelmed and burned out. And like we talked about earlier, when we're in that state, we're not showing up well for anybody in our lives. especially for ourselves. And the relationship we have with ourselves is the one that we're modeling for our kids, and that becomes their example for the inner voice they have. And so I think starting with that in whatever way is best for you. And that's also where it gets a little bit more difficult, because I wish that there was just a blueprint I could give someone of like, do these things in this order and this will work for you. But I think you and I have even alluded to this in past conversations. We are all each so unique that when it comes to physical health, there's a level of personalization and experimentation with yourself to find out what your most important pieces are that are going to be most impactful. And perhaps the most valuable pursuit we go on in physical health is the experimentation to figure out what that is. And the same is true with these other factors as well, as we have to figure out the personalization and what's actually going to work for us over time. And that's where it gets a little more difficult, because you can't just follow the system necessarily that works from someone else, but you can learn from their experimentation and maybe from their framework some things to try that might help you to really dial that in for yourself.
Oh my gosh, you hit so many good points. And I wanted to just emphasize because, like I said, Katie's not perfect. I'm not perfect. Surprise, surprise. But during the pandemic, I'm an introvert. So it was really easy for me. And I remember when the pandemic started, it said, for all of you introverts out there, go check on your extrovert friends, right? Well, it became so easy to be a homebody. I work at home. My kids were at home. They're my favorite people. I don't get tired of them. So it was very easy for me to then just text and do group chats with other moms, and even Bible study groups that were now just online or just through text. Um, and I wasn't getting out, but I'm so healthy. I was, doing my eating right, and I was doing my supplements, and I was working out. But Katie, I also wasn't getting outside like you talked about. And what started to happen was my sleep was not good anymore. And for all of you moms out there, no supplement, no diet, no exercise replaces good sleep. That is the cornerstone of health. And also, stress will derail your sleep as well. So you have to get all of these other things in line to get that sleep in line. So, with that being said, I forced myself to start going to a yoga class, which there's community. It fit into my schedule because it replaced my workout time, right? So it wasn't like I felt like I'm losing time or wasting time. I have committed to making sure the Bible study actually meets in person. And I'm walking my dogs twice a day, in the morning, but then at dusk. And that just walking at night, I literally go for 10 minutes around the block at a stroll. I'm not working out, I'm not huffing and puffing, but just to calm down that cortisol, that stress, give myself some space, but all of that circadian rhythm, natural light that is hitting my eyes in the right time, in the right place, has really impacted my sleep in a really positive way. I've also, like you're saying, with all of this social media and connectivity, it also literally physically scrambles your brain. And I will feel my brain get a headache, blurred vision if I'm looking at my devices too long. And it's just fact. That's what is happening. And as the phones get more advanced and we're into 5G and all of this stuff, it's only going to get more impactful. And so you need that nature to combat those negative EMFs. And that's your biggest way to combat it. Then there's that balance. We always talk about balance. The reality is we're never going to have balance in our marriage, as a mom, as a business owner, in our health. We have these pieces to the puzzle, and some are going to be high and some are going to be low at different times in our life. But the goal is to try to be okay with it, not stress over it, but move it in the right direction.